Augments. If you played Chapter 4, you will know all about augments. From the simple ones like Light Fingers to the super strong ones like Zero Chance and Shotgun Striker, augments can be pretty much anything from nice bonuses to game-changing superpowers. Today I've gone through every augment and attempted to balance them relative to each other. For each, I'll also tell you if it's meant to be a nerf, a buff, a rework, or if I just reworded it for clarity. Because a lot of the time, things like the description for it in game will just say some vague thing about it, and you go on the wiki and it doesn't it's just about as helpful as the just looking at the game is. So whatever. Anyway, first I'm going to propose a slight rework to augments in general to make them more balanced. For this rework, we have to understand how augments work. Each player is able to select 4 augments each game, and players are able to select a new augment every 150 seconds, so a little over every minute and a half. For my rework, I've organized each of the augments into normal and legendary augments. Players will be able to pick from normal augments on their first and second selection, and will have a 10% chance to get a legendary augment on their third. On the fourth selection, only legendary augments will be available. To keep this in check, the ability to select a new augment will expire when the next one becomes available, and the fourth one will expire after 150 seconds. This prevents players from holding augments, so you can't just keep game time in your back pocket until the storm closes completely. The augment available icon will begin to flash red 30 seconds before the augment expires, along with an auditory cue to tell players that the next augment is about to expire. Also, I've reorganized the categories into Combat, Granter, Looting, and Mobility and Scouting. Combat is for bonuses to specific weapons. Granter is for any augment that gives weapons or items. Looting is for giving more loot or getting special kinds of loot. And Mobility and Scouting is for increasing or improving movement options and hiding options. With these changes in mind, this is how I change every augment to fit practically any Fortnite meta. Combat, normal. Bow Specialist. Bows reload and draw 50% faster, and 2 arrows are granted every 20 seconds. Arrows will not be granted if you have max arrows. This is basically how it works in game right now. Well, when it was in the game. But I've changed it slightly, so I made it that you don't get arrows whenever you're full on arrows. That has like a positive and a negative. The positive is that now you don't have a paper trail of arrows following you around everywhere. The negative is that if you're playing squads and everyone on your team has a bow, and you get like one guy with Bow Specialist, then you gotta just drop the arrows from your inventory to give them to people rather than just waiting for it to give you it naturally and then them just pick it off right off you. I feel like it's more of a buff though. Desperate Reload. Pistols reload 50% faster when less than 10% of their magazine remains, rounding down. This and Reckless Rifle Reload are both going to be changed, but I'll just talk about Desperate Reload for now. I'm changing it so that instead of you have to fire out the entire magazine, it's just the last 10%. So like let's say you have a tactical pistol and you have 3 shots. If you want to get the benefit of Desperate Reload, you have to fire off those last 3 shots for no reason, right? And it's a waste of ammo, especially if it's like one of your first augments and you don't have a lot of ammo for your pistol, especially if it's something like a hand cannon where it uses heavy ammo, which is kind of hard to find. So if you manage to use like 4 or 5 shots on your hand cannon, then you want to use the benefit of Desperate Reload because you're about to get into another fight, you would have to fire out those last couple shots, which means you're not only wasting ammo, but then things like the hand cannon also take a while to reload compared to other pistols. So getting Desperate Reload as a benefit is huge in those situations. So making it do it on the last 10% of the magazine makes it a lot more forgiving to actually use the augment, and it makes it a little bit more useful. First Assault. The first bullet in the magazines of assault rifles and marksman rifles deal 25% more damage. For weapons without a magazine, the effect applies when their cooldown is over. I buffed this augment in 2 ways. One, I made it apply to marksman rifles, which means things like the DMR, thermal DMR, Cobra DMR, and even the Excalibur rifle all applies. For reference, for the Excalibur rifle, it would only apply to the initial shot, not the explosion. I also made it apply to things like the sideways minigun and the sideways rifle, as well as like the Star Wars rifles, I guess, where they use a cooldown system. So it applies when none of the overheat bar is used up. So basically when your magazine, quote unquote, is full. Last shots. Pistols deal 50% more damage on the last 25% of their magazines, rounding up. Last shots has always felt like a really useless augment to me, unless you had something like a flintlock pistol, where it has like a really low capacity that you use really quickly. So I decided to buff it to the last 25% instead of the last 2 shots, so that, you know, it sort of like Desperate Reload, it's actually useful. Light fingers. Weapons using light ammo reload 25% faster. Weapons using a cooldown system cooldown 25% faster. This is how it works in game, and for once the wiki actually helps you out. It is actually 25% faster. But then I also made it apply to cooldown systems, so miniguns and sideways miniguns will cooldown faster while this augment is applied. This once again makes it just a little bit more useful. Light fingers is a good augment to have, especially if you prefer to run an SMG. I don't, because I play mostly zero build, so I usually run flapjack rifle. And even when I do play builds, I usually just run flapjack rifle. But if you do like SMGs, light fingers is great. And if you like TAC AR, light fingers is great. If you like pistols, light fingers is great. It's just a useful augment if you like weapons that use light ammo. And I've always found it a little weird that it didn't do anything to miniguns, so we're going to change that. Medium ammo amp. Weapons using medium ammo gain 20% magazine size, rounding up. Weapons on a cooldown system have 20% longer before they overheat. This one is, once again, unchanged from how it was, other than the cooldown system weapons. For that, I'm pretty sure the only weapon that uses medium ammo and is on a cooldown system is the sideways rifle. So in that case, it stays in the heated up state longer. Not just like, oh, it's longer, so you have to fire more shots before you get into the heated up state. No, it goes into the heated up state for 20% longer. Pistol amp. Pistols gain 50% magazine size, rounding up. How it works in game with a lot of these increased magazine size is it usually rounds down, so I just changed it slightly so it rounds up. I'm pretty sure this doesn't affect the tactical pistol, because if you get 50% of 15, it is 22. I think, like, perfectly even. So, it doesn't affect the tactical pistol, which is probably what you're going to be using it with most of the time. But for, like, other niche scenario weapons, like, I don't know, a hand cannon, or dual pistols, or most other pistols that don't have exactly 15 rounds, there's going to be, like, a decimal place whenever you do 50%. So in those cases, you get like one more shot, which isn't huge most of the time, but it's just nice. Reckless Rifle Reload. Weapons using medium ammo reload 50% faster when less than 10% of their magazine remains, rounding down. This is the same change I did to Desperate Reload, where instead of having to fire out the entire magazine, it's just the last 10%, which, to be honest, is when you'd end up just like firing out the rest of the magazine anyway to get the benefit of the augment. So instead of wasting ammo, you just, you know, reload it and you get the benefit of the augment. And then on top of that, I'm making it so that all weapons that use medium ammo get the effect. So even a pistol, technically, could get it. Even something that serves the function of an SMG, like a drum gun or flapjack or anything like that, also gets the benefit. I mean, flapjack already gets the benefit anyway, but whatever. Also, as I reading the script, I realized I left this out. I completely forgot to note the cooldown system thing that I keep putting on like all of these. But for the sideways rifle, it cools down 50% faster. I think you get the idea. Rifle recycle. Weapons using medium ammo have a 30% chance not to consume ammo. Weapons using a cooldown system will not have their cooldown meter used when the effect is applied. This isn't really a buff or a nerf. This is how it was in-game, when I was in the game. It's not, like, the craziest augment ever, but, I mean, it's useful. It saves on ammo, like, 30% of the time. So, you know, it's helpful to have. Like, nothing game breaking, but nice to have. And then cooldown system, now it applies to cooldown system weapons, which is literally just the sideways rifle, but of course it is. The sideways rifle is special, like all of us. Rushing reload. Sprinting with a weapon using shells equipped will reload a shell every half second. So I changed rushing reload to reload one shell every half second rather than 2 shells every second, so that if you have a weapon that doesn't require you to have multiple shells in the chamber in order to fire, i.e. everything that's not the Thunder shotgun and the Dragon's Breath shotgun, it just reloads one shell at a time rather quickly. It's, you know, not a buff, it's definitely not a nerf, but it's not really much of a buff. I mean, the augment, it wasn't ever super strong, but it was never bad to have. And that's kind of the idea for everything that's in the normal category for all of the augments. It's good to have, but it's nothing game breaking. So yeah, that's rushing reload. Shell slide. Weapons using shotgun shells don't consume ammo while sliding. So shell slide now becomes useless because I changed munition slide pretty drastically. You can probably guess what I did to it. But because of that, that means that shell slide is now useless. So instead, I'm completely reworking the augment. So now anything using a shotgun shell that is being shot while you're sliding will not consume ammo while sliding. So I guess this kind of makes shotgun recycle redundant, especially if for whatever reason you are always sliding while using a shotgun or an Excalibur rifle or a boom bow. I didn't really know what to do with it, so this is the best I could come up with. Shotgun recycle. Weapons using shells have a 30% chance to not consume ammo. Shotgun recycle used to be 20% chance, so I buffed it to 30% chance to match rifle recycle. Shotgun recycle always kind of felt like a bad augment, so this is a buff, not only to match, but also because it was just, like, kinda useless. I mean, the only weapon you'd realistically use it on last season was the Maven Auto. And let's be honest, who was using the Maven Auto when the Havoc Pump shotgun was in the game? Especially the Mythic Havoc Pump. Like, no, nobody was using this augment other than the fact that, like, I don't want to reroll augments anymore, and this is slightly better than the other one, so I'm taking it. SMG Extended Mag. SMGs gain 20% magazine size, rounding up. This augment doesn't receive any nerfs, just like a very slight buff. It already is 20%, so now I'm making it rounding up instead of rounding down like it is now in the game. But otherwise it's unchanged. Still not like the craziest augment ever, it's just helpful. And for stuff with lower capacities, this is going to be more beneficial. I imagine this would be decent on something like a rapid fire SMG, especially the lower tiers of the rapid fire. So yeah, it's alright. SMG sign off. SMGs deal 50% more damage on the last 15% of their magazines or cooldowns, rounding up. This is a minuscule buff, asterisk. I've always found it annoying that it's the last 3 shots, because let's be honest, when are you going to hit the last 3 shots of an SMG magazine? If the opponent's not already dead, you've missed too many shots. I also said cooldowns, so that it applies to the Chimera ray gun and the Zig and Choppy's ray gun. I also made it 15%, so it only applies to like a little bit of the magazine, but it is a lot more of the magazine. So for the regular submachine gun, it applied to last like 4-ish shots, so a little buff there. It's going to be a lot more beneficial on SMGs with really high capacities. For instance, something like a Primal SMG or the Compact SMG, which had like 40 rounds, I think, before it got vaulted and just removed from the game. Sniper surplus. Sniper rifles gain 50% magazine size, rounding up. This isn't a buff at all to any sniper rifle that had only 1 shot in the magazine. You get 1 more shot. That's it. Right? So for something like a heavy sniper or a bolt action sniper, this augment is completely unchanged. However, if you have a weapon like the Hunter bolt action sniper or the automatic sniper rifle, this augment is a game changer, because instead of adding from 3 to 4 and from 16 to 17, you get from 3 to 5. And you go from 16 to 24, which means that it has the same capacity as the Cobra DMR with medium ammo amp, and it benefits from medium ammo amp. So it's just a huge buff to the automatic sniper rifle. So overall, Sniper Surplus gets a pretty big buff, especially to sniper rifles that already had multiple rounds. Steady hands. Marksman rifles and sniper rifles have 75% less recoil and have better hipfire accuracy. So I decided to make this apply to sniper rifles because I've always felt like snipers have like a little bit too much recoil sometimes, especially stuff that has multiple shots like the Hunter Bolt Action Sniper or the automatic sniper. On top of that, they all get better hipfire accuracy, which means like the hunting rifle is even more ridiculous as a hipfire sniper. Same with the explosive repeater rifle, which just got added. And now you actually have a chance of hitting those no-scopes with your heavy sniper from 300 meters away. It's still a very small chance, but it's less of a small chance. So yeah, steady hands gets a nice little buff there. Swift shotgun reload. Shotguns reload 25% faster. Literally nowhere I could find specifies how much faster Swift Shotgun Reload actually increases the reload speed of your shotgun. So I just set it to 25 because that's just kind of how it feels. It's probably closer to 30 if I had to guess, but I set it to 25 because I like the nice little round number 25 that's not round. So if it is a little bit higher than that, then I guess this is a nerf. If it's a little lower than that, then this is a buff, but I'm literally just putting this for clarity's sake, so that way you know how much faster it is. But functionally, it's the same. Combat. Legendary. Danger Hero. When all of your shields break, move 50% faster and regenerate 5 HP twice per second. Last 15 seconds. This augment is mostly unchanged. I just reworded it instead of saying when your shields break, overshield excluded, to when all of your shields break. I guess this is slightly a buff, because this means that if you're on whites and you have overshield, and then your overshield breaks, the effect applies, which is not how it used to work. You used to have at least like one shield before you could use the effect of Danger Hero. Danger Hero was such a good augment, and I wish they brought it back. Even if they didn't implement my change, if they were going to put this back into the game just right now without implementing anything else I'm suggesting. Dignified Finish. Weapons and items on a cooldown system have their cooldowns reset upon eliminating opponents. Now you might be thinking, what is the Kinetic Blade exclusive augment doing in the legendary category of the combat section? Well, it's because I buffed it like a hell of a ton. So, any weapon or item on a cooldown system has their cooldown instantly reset once you kill someone. So, let's say you're using a minigun. You kill someone with the minigun, you now have full uptime on your minigun all over again. You kill someone with, I don't know, something simple, a Kamehameha, you now get to use a Kamehameha all over again because the cooldown is instantly reset. Same with like Iron Man's Unibeam, or even something simple like a jetpack. All of your fuel immediately restored. You kill someone with ODM gear, boom, you have 100% use time again. Or, well, if you're about to break the ODM gear, you get back up as much as there is fuel. Either way, this just makes this augment stupidly good. So, of course, I put it in the legendary category, so you can only have a very small chance of getting it before, like, ever. Rarity check. Grant siphon on elimination based on the rarity of the weapon eliminated with. Stacks with standard siphon if enabled. So, for reference, based on the rarity, so for common weapons, it would give 50. On uncommon, it would give 40. Rare is 30. Epic is 20. Legendary is 10. And then mythics and exotics don't give any siphon. This can be seen as a nerf if you really like the Flintlock pistol in green rarity for whatever reason, because now it gives 10 less siphon. But this is like a tiny nerf to using uncommon weapons over common weapons. And let's be honest, you would pick an uncommon weapon over a common weapon unless this augment only specifically applied to common. This also makes it so it's not completely useless if you already have a loadout of like legendary and mythic weapons. I always hate it when I get rarity check as my last augment, because I usually have like blue, purple, sometimes gold stuff by the time I get it if I have it as my last augment, which means I either have to skip out on it because it's a good augment, or I have to take it and then go out of my way and find new weapons that are lower tier than the ones I have so that I can make use of the augment. So it's just a weird thing. So I made it so that it at least does something if you have a loadout of like epic and legendary guns. And if you want to downgrade your stuff so you get more benefit out of it, you can. And you don't have to downgrade all the way. I feel like a loadout that just has rare items in it would be perfectly fine. I mean, rare is like middle of the road items, and then it gives you alright siphon. It's still a strong augment, even though it would only give you 30 siphon. And once again, it stacks with standard siphon. So if they ever decide to put 50 HP siphon back into competitive, this is how it would work with regular siphon. Riftjector Seat. When all of your shields break, a rift is spawned where you are. Has a cooldown of 20 seconds that starts after hitting the ground. This is the same buff that Danger Hero got, where if you just have white health and overshield, the effect still applies. But it's also a huge nerf, because now it has a cooldown to it that doesn't even start until you hit the ground. Meaning you still have to go out and find healing items. So if you use Riftjector Seat as a pushing option, for whatever reason, you have to quickly get down, probably pop a slurp juice, let's be honest, and then get into the fight. Or if you use it the more common way, which is to run away from a fight, then if the person uses your own rift and catches up with you and manages to find you or manages to get you before you can heal up again, the opponent gets the benefit of cracking you still, because the benefit of cracking you is then eliminating you shortly afterwards. So they can pretty easily still eliminate you without having to run across the whole map, because you just have an inventory full of minis and pop one mini and then let them shoot you and then use the rift again and get away again. It's really, really annoying when people would do this. So yeah, no, it has a cooldown now, and the cooldown doesn't even start until you hit the ground. And this would not work with Dignified Finish, by the way. If you get the benefit of Dignified Finish and then you get cracked and your Riftjector Seat is not off cooldown, it doesn't count for Dignified Finish. Shotgun Striker. Hitting an opponent with a shotgun grants 25% of damage dealt as siphon. This is how I think it used to work. I think the way it works now is it just gives you a flat 10 HP every time you hit someone with a shotgun. Still great with anything like a High-Sted Maven or a drum shotgun, but pretty much anything else it's almost useless, like healing 10 HP on my slow firing shotgun every time I hit someone with it, when I'm really only going to hit them like twice and they're dead. Thanks, game, I regenerated 20 HP from that fight. Like, it's nice, but it's almost useless, and it's such a rare augment that it's like, thanks, I guess. So I just buffed it to where I believe it used to be. So since you can only get it as a maybe on your last two augments, I feel like it's a lot more fair. Granter, normal. Go for Broke. Grants a rare charged shotgun and an uncommon flintlock pistol. When an opponent, NPC, or wildlife is eliminated, either the charged shotgun or the flintlock pistol upgrade to the next rarity, with both maxing out at legendary. Does not upgrade if the weapon is dropped. So this is a buff to the way the augment was, although it's not an initial buff. It used to be a purple charge rather than a blue charge, so I'm setting it to be a blue charge. However, now it works sort of like Everchrome weapons worked, in that you kill someone with it and it upgrades itself. And by the way, if you decide to carry just one, so you decide to carry just the charged shotgun, you get a kill, then it upgrades to purple. And it's guaranteed to upgrade to purple because you drop the flintlock. Same thing with the flintlock. if you decide to carry the flintlock and don't want the charged shotgun, then you carry the flintlock, you get a kill, it upgrades to blue. Which, yes, this means there would now be a blue, purple, gold flintlock. But you get a kill with the green flintlock in your inventory, it upgrades to blue. Then you get a kill with the blue flintlock in your inventory, it upgrades to purple. If you pick up someone else's go for broke weapon and then get a kill, it won't upgrade the weapon unless you also have go for broke. It's kind of a weird augment now, but it's pretty useful if you plan on getting a lot of kills and you really like the charged shotgun or you really like the flintlock pistol, because then you get a nearly guaranteed high rarity of each. Mechanical Archer grants a rare mechanical explosive bow and a rare mechanical shockwave bow. This augment is completely unchanged from how it was when it was introduced, and it will remain that way because it is a fairly balanced augment, because it gives two bows. One is for strictly damage, and one is damage and mobility, and let's be honest, damage and mobility is always going to win, but the ability to get an explosive bow is always nice, because if you ever want it, you just roll for an augment. I would argue, though, that if the mechanical explosive bow is ever put back into the game, and like, let's say all 4 bows are put back into the game, this shouldn't be the only way to get the explosive bow, because then no one's going to ever use the explosive bow. It should just also come with the shockwave bow, and I feel like this should be the only way to get the shockwave bow. However, this is not the only way to get the explosive bow. Just my personal take. Medium ammo acquired. Gain 10 medium ammo every 20 seconds. Does not grant if ammo storage is maxed. So instead of going around and looting more chests in order to get medium ammo, which is what you would honestly be doing if you were trying to get medium ammo anyway, because, let's be honest, assault weapons are very common in chests. Instead, it kind of works like bow specialist, and then it just gives you ammo slowly over time, which, in my opinion, is a lot more useful, because let's say you're in an endgame scenario and you only have like 100 medium ammo, which is not going to last you very long in an endgame scenario, let me tell you, because you're probably going to need to break opponents' builds, or cover if you're playing zero build. So, because you're probably going to need a metric butt ton of medium ammo if you're trying to break down a bunch of structures or cover that your opponent is hiding behind, whenever you're in the endgame scenario where it's just you and like maybe 2 other people, if not the last guy, you're probably going to need more than just 100 in reserve. Well, you just sit around and wait, and every 20 seconds you're gonna get more medium ammo. It's not a lot of medium ammo. The fact that it's constantly giving it to you every couple of seconds means that you will eventually be able to have a sustainable amount of medium ammo to engage in those last couple of fights. In addition to that, if you barely fight at all in the mid game, this means you will have max ammo when it comes to late game, which is wonderful to have. So overall, this is just a great augment to have, rather than being the looting nightmare that it currently is. Munition Slide grants 2 ammo for whatever weapon held while sliding for every half-second sliding. Does not grant if ammo is maxed, and grants random ammo if something that doesn't use ammo is held. Okay, so let's break down that description real quick. So it grants 2 ammo for whatever weapon is held while sliding for every half-second sliding. So you slide for half a second, and you get 2 ammo for whatever gun you're holding. So if you're holding a pump, you get 2 shells. If you're holding a SCAR, you get 2 medium ammo. If you're holding an SMG, you get 2 light ammo, etc. It's not based on the weapon type and the typical ammo that it would use. It's based on the actual ammo that the weapon that you're holding uses. And the ammo that you get randomly when you're holding something like minis or a pickaxe or something like that is random between all of the different ammo types, so everything can be given equally. And of course, if a weapon uses a special ammo type, that won't be counted into it. So rip saws, because that is an ammo type, will not be, given to you, because you have absolutely no use for rip saws unless you have a rip saw launcher. In which case, then it would give you rip saws if you're holding out the rip saw launcher. Springtime Blowout grants a rare egg launcher. I'm not even quite sure how this augment worked because I didn't even end up unlocking it until like the very end of the spring event. And even then, I had like a really good loadout when I had it and had absolutely no use for an egg launcher in my inventory. So I just rolled past it, didn't even bother to see what it did because it just said grants an egg launcher. And I was like, well, I don't need an egg launcher. Even a legendary egg launcher would be completely useless to me because I already have Mythic Pump, Blink Mag SMG, and a Red Eye, and then Slurp Juice and a Kinetic Blade. There is no room in my inventory anywhere for me to put an egg launcher. So yeah, no, I don't need this roll. And I just never found the augment again. I never re-rolled for it. And I just never really knew what it did. Other than, well, it says it gives an egg launcher, so I assume it gave an egg launcher. So I just put rare egg launcher because I feel like that's the most fair. Wild Wasp Weaponry grants 2 Wild Wasp jars and grants 2 more for each elimination. Wild Wasp jars last 50% longer. So I buffed this augment in 2 ways. So for one, instead of giving 1 Wild Wasp jar every time you kill someone, it gives 2, which is a lot more useful. And then secondly, I made it so that any Wild Wasp jars in your inventory last 50% longer whenever you throw them. So the duration of the wasps is a lot longer. So whenever I was initially writing this script, I originally made it so that Wild Wasp jars ignored shields instead of lasting 50% longer, which now that they've been buffed to be like 15 damage stink bombs is definitely overkill and would make this augment like legendary category status. I didn't want to do that to Wild Wasp Weaponry, so instead I just made it last 50% longer because I felt like just making it give you Wild Wasp jars is like not that great. So I wanted to do at least something to buff the jars. Granter, legendary. Chug Gunner grants a chug cannon. This one is completely unchanged from how it was when it was last in the game. Unfortunately, now the chug cannon is vaulted, so this would, I guess, give you a vaulted item. But, I mean, this augment was never the worst, but it was never ridiculous. It was just, oh, chug gunner. Well, I already have 4 slurps in my inventory. Roll. Like, if you got it as one of your first augments, or you decided to just hold it for the whole game, and then when you ran out of heals, you selected the augment, it could work. I remember one game I won because I had the chug cannon. I think I had minis. And I ran out of minis, and I was holding the augment because I knew I was about to run out of minis. I only had 2, right? And so I used my minis, and then I select the augment, and I just dropped the red eye because I was like, well, it's more beneficial for me to have shotgun spray weapon than it is for me to have shotgun red eye. So I swapped it out, and I ended up winning the game because I had chug cannon, because I just out-healed the other guy. Not in Storm, by the way. He just kept, hitting, 20 damage tags on me with a shotgun, but I kept healing over and over again, and eventually he ran out of mats, and he had to drop down to me, and then I just didn't edit and killed him. That might not be entirely accurate. I might have had, a tactical pistol or something else. I might have had a slightly different loadout, but the point still stands. I won a game off Chug Gunner, and it felt great. So I don't feel like it's an augment that needs to be buffed or nerfed. Exotic Grab Bag grants a random exotic weapon. Exotic Grab Bag is one of those augments where it's useful, but only if you get the right thing out of it. If you got the heisted explosive assault rifle, it always felt bad, because that thing was probably the worst heisted exotic. It was still a good exotic, don't get me wrong. Explosive AR, yes please, but it had marksman rifle bullet drop for some reason, which I don't know why they didn't just do heisted explosive DMR. That would have made more sense, but oh well. Anyway, yeah, exotic grab bag, I'm changing it so it's not exclusive to the heisted exotics. It's just all exotics that are currently in the game that are a weapon. You can't get any healing exotics out of this. You can't get any itemized exotics if we ever have those. It's just weapons. So I think right now we have heisted Maven, heisted Breacher, running gun SMG. I think the Shadow Tracker is only available through Hollow Chest, but it's there. So now you'd be able to get the Shadow Tracker from an augment all over again. So that's kind of cool. And then any other exotic that they decide to throw in the game any day. You know, Hop Rock Duelers would be cool. Dragon's Breath Sniper would be really cool because we don't have any scoped sniper rifles right now. I don't know. Just throwing ideas out there, Epic. Game time. Grants a pizza party box, 3 Chug Splash, and 3 Chili Chug Splash. Now, you might think that granting 3 Chili Chug Splash is a buff. And it is, but it also is like a tiny nerf because now you can't stack it with Chug Splash. Because what used to be was it grants a pizza party box and 4 Chug Splash. So now it gives more healing, but you have to use it more immediately. But the reason I made it give more healing is because now the augment, number 1, can't be held, which was what made it such a stupidly good augment. So now you can't just hold game time for the entire game and just like leave it in your augment select screen and then wait until the end of the game, wait for Storm to close, and then use game time and have way more heals than everyone else, which was always lame to see whenever you'd watch competitive games. So yeah, no more of that. You have to actually hold the pizza box, which it's still good, don't get me wrong. The pizza box is still really good. It's just you can't use it immediately. You have to throw it down on the ground and then pick up the pizza slices and eat them. It's just not as good for being ultra late game survive in storm. But it's still strong. If you get this like as your 3rd or 4th augment, well, now you have a pizza party box, so one of your teammates can hold that, and then you have 3 Chili Chug Splash, so you can just throw one of those on your teammates and either just drop the other 2 or hold on to them in case your team needs a splash boost, or you can just hold on to them in case your team needs a speed boost again for whatever reason. So yeah, just useful, but not overpowered like it was. Mythic Munition grants a random mythic weapon. This is a huge buff. So Mythic Munition used to be it grants a mythic tactical pistol. So now I'm buffing it so that it grants a random mythic weapon. The reason I'm doing this is not because the tactical pistol in mythic rarity is a bad weapon. The reason I am doing this is because, let's be honest, with the way that I've redone the augment system, you can now only get it as your 3rd or 4th augment, which means you'll be going into the mid-game as you're getting this. So, for instance, you're going up to Loot Island to grab the flag, or it's about to spawn and you're about to go up there and grab the flag. Wouldn't it be cool if you didn't have to go up there? You got this augment instead, used it, and now you have that weapon that you would have gotten from the flag. Well, now all you gotta do is go find your combat cache and open that, which is a lot less risky than taking the island, because everyone pushes the island, and yeah, it's just strong now. It's way stronger. Of course, now you can only get it as your 3rd or 4th augment, so you can't get like a mythic weapon as your first weapon in the game, or one of your first weapons in the game. But yeah, it's now super strong. It's not guaranteed what you'll get, so if there's a mythic in the game that's actually kind of bad, like, oh, I don't know, Havoc Suppressed AR, then yeah, it's disappointing when you get that. But if you get Flag Mythic, or you get Vault Mythic and didn't go out of your way and capture the flag or open the vault, that's huge, because now you just gotta worry about Slurp Juice, which you can probably get if you just kill someone, or you go out and find a combat cache. Splash Party grants 6 exotic Slap Splash. The way this augment works now is that it grants 4 regular Slap Splash, so I'm buffing it to 6 of the exotic ones. This is just so that it's in line with game time. Like, I feel like just giving 4 Slap Splash is kind of lame, but giving 6 of the super strong exotic ones is really strong, so yeah. Splash Party gets a huge buff, even though it just got added. Tactical Armory grants 2 random legendary rarity tactical weapons. What I mean by tactical weapons is the tactical assault rifle, tactical SMG, tactical shotgun, or tactical pistol. So you get 2 of them and it's picked from random. So you might get tac pistol, tac SMG, which would probably be the worst thing you can get because now you gotta pick between the 2. Or you could get tac shotgun, tac AR, tac shotgun, tac pistol. You know, all the combinations, right? I feel like the best one would probably be tac shotgun, tac AR. Because tac AR is a medium range melter, if you know what you're doing. And it's alright for long range. The recoil is not too bad, it's just the damage that sucks. And the tactical shotgun is decent, especially in legendary rarity, it's pretty good. And if they ever do something drastic, like, oh, I don't know, vault the drum shotgun, please, epic. I mean, the primal shotgun is sitting right there, and it would have fit the jungle theme way better. I know you don't want to make it obvious that you're just making a slightly better Chapter 2 Season 6, but come on. Tracker's Armory grants a Shadow Tracker and a Recon Scanner. This augment gets a buff. Did it need a buff? No. Is it a lot more fun and useful with that buff? Yes. Tracker's Armory was that weird augment where it was like, oh my gosh, this is such a good augment. If I didn't already have a really good loadout that doesn't need a Shadow Tracker or a flare gun, you know what I mean? Like you're playing Zero build, you have Havoc Pump, Flapjack Rifle, MK Alpha, and they're all high tier weapons and they're all in high rarities. You have Slurp Juice, and then you have 6 Shockwave Grenades, right? And you get this augment, you get Tracker's Armory as your 4th and final augment. And it's like, I don't need a flare gun, right? It's not going to help me. And I don't need a Shadow Tracker. Because I already have the Flapjack Rifle in, like, what, purple, legendary, mythic rarity? I don't need either of these weapons. But if you got a recon scanner out of it, that's infinite scans. And you don't really have to aim with it. You just have to kind of hit close. So that would be a conundrum there. Do I drop something for this? You know? And for me personally, I might say yes. I might be like, okay, well, I'm going to take this augment. I'm going to drop the Flapjack Rifle and I'm going to go find a high rarity drum shotgun. Or I'm going to hold it for a little bit because it does last 150 seconds, which is probably enough to go capture the flag. I'm going to go up to the flag, I'm going to grab the mythic drum shotgun, and then I'm going to use this augment, and I'll have the benefit of the recon scanner, and I'll have a good close range. Looting, common. Looting, normal. Demolitions Munitions. Non-player built objects have a 50% chance of dropping either 2 rockets or a stack of 2 random explosive throwable items, for example grenades. I changed it from instead of dropping 2 grenades, it drops 2 random explosive throwable items. So that would be things like 2 remote explosives, 2 paper bomb kunai, 2 batarangs, I don't know. It wouldn't be things like 2 kamehameha, like, if that counts as an explosive weapon in the files. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about, like, throwable things, like clingers, proximity mines, that kind of thing. You know? Maybe cuttlefish, although that doesn't really make much sense. Yeah, stuff like that. I feel like grenades would be honestly the worst drop you could get from that. Even dynamite is now better than grenades. Epic, please unvault dynamite. I feel like it's a little bit more fair, because, like, yeah, it has that stupid build destruction, and it does more damage than grenades. Not by a lot, but it does. But at the same time, you can throw it back at the person. So, I don't know, maybe unvault dynamite, see how it goes. Maybe make it do, like, 30 damage, but keep the building destruction, just so it's useful, you know? Because I feel like, I get nerfing the grenades so they only do 40 damage, but then also nerfing the structure damage is kind of bad. Because you can't even kill someone with a stack of grenades anymore. So, I'd rather just keep the structure damage, so, like, you actually hit those 40 damage shots, and you get some nice tags on someone, if you decide to nade stack them or whatever. but it's not like overpowered. It's just really strong, and it's a one-time use thing. Dumpster diving. Leaving hiding places drops 5 random non-forageable healing items. Can only be common, uncommon, or rare. Dumpster diving used to just give you random items, period. Although I don't know for absolute certain, because if I ever selected this augment, it was on accident, and I never ended up utilizing it, because it would always be on accident in Team Rumble. So dumpster diving has always been that one augment where I just never really need to use it. So I decided that the best way to buff it would make it just drop healing items, because who doesn't need healing items? That kind of makes it useful, because it can only be common, uncommon, or rare. So maybe you get bandages, maybe you get med kits, maybe you get big pots, maybe you get med mist, but all of those are useful items, but they're not like stupidly strong items. Like you can't get slurp juice out of that. You might get like some chug splashes or some slap splashes, and those would be good, but it's not like game-breakingly good. You know what I mean? Still a little on the weaker side, but it's kind of a buff. Harvester. Foliage objects destroyed drop either 1 big bush bomb or 5 forageables. Forageables heal for twice as much. So this is a slight nerf because it used to give both a big bush bomb and forageables. So now I'm making it do either or. But otherwise it's about the same as it used to be. Foliage objects would be like trees, bushes, you know, stuff like that. Which means you can just throw down a big bush bomb if you have one from using this augment. Break the bush, get another big bush bomb, and just keep that cycle going for, I guess you could say, forever. Or let's be honest, until you get healing items from it. And I do like the idea that forageables heal better. So like, you know, if you get coconuts from it, coconuts heal for double HP, which is really nice. Keymaster grants 2 keys. This is completely unchanged, and we all know how good Keymaster is, so let's just move on. Shadow Striker, Slap Surplus, and Splash Medic have a 50% chance to find Shadow Bombs, Slap Juice, and Chug Splash for each of the respective items in any container opened. So when Slap Surplus was in the game, it was just chests, so that one gets the buff to be in line with Shadow Striker and Splash Medic, but they all basically do the same thing just with 3 different items. Shadow Striker, you get Shadow Bombs. Slap Surplus, you get Slap Juice. Splash Medic, you get Chug Splash. And it's just one of each in half of the containers you open. You need extra heals, take Slap or Splash Medic. If you need extra movement, Shadow Striker. Treasure Hunter. Entering a POI for the first time highlights all unopened containers in that POI for 30 seconds and marks anyone being bounty hunted in that POI for 5 seconds. This is a huge buff to Treasure Hunter. So, the first time POI highlighting chest part, that's the same. But now it also marks anyone being bounty hunted. And it marks them like the same way that a Shadow Tracker or Bloodhound on a sniper would. It only lasts 5 seconds, so it's not like stupid, but like now you know that there's another player in the area. So you can run or you can fight. Looting, legendary. Bluefish Angler. Grants a pro fishing rod that can only fish up jellyfish and shieldfish. This augment is slightly nerfed. So Bluefish Angler used to be you just get jellyfish, which doesn't sound that strong, and it's not for pubs, but in competitive, what people would do was they would use this augment, box up near a river, and just use the fishing rod over and over and over and just fish up like 1 billion jellyfish. Then they would just try and survive as much as possible, try and take as little damage as possible, get into endgame. Doesn't matter how many kills you got as long as you got over surge. Wait for the storm to completely close. Then they would just use kinetic blade or ODM gear or whatever. They would go back to their box where they fished up all those jellyfish, and they would just survive in storm with all of these jellyfish that they just fished up while they were just camping there, waiting for the game to end. So I decided to make it do jellyfish and shieldfish, and it has a 50% chance of giving one or the other. I made it jellyfish and shieldfish because A, in pubs, it's a lot more useful now because now you can get shieldfish, which is a lot stronger of a healing item, especially for pubs. It also nerfs the sit in a box and collect jellyfish forever strat, so you can't do that anymore. Now, I mean, with mobility gone out of competitive, for practical reasons, it's a lot less viable of a strategy, but now it's even less of a viable strategy, because you only get half as much. Peely's Plunder grants a treasure map that leads to buried treasure containing mythic and exotic weapons. Peely's Plunder and the treasure map in general, whether it was like the regular one or the Drake's map, it's always felt pretty underwhelming because you get legendary rarity weapons, which is great and all, but what if it's your last augment where you already have epic rarity weapons? Do you drop something in your inventory to go out of your way to get something that's only one rarity higher, especially if you got your combat cache when it was epic or legendary, which how? But if you got your combat cache while it was legendary, or even if it was just epic, that's pretty much just going to be what the treasure map was going to do. It's just it doesn't downgrade, which is not actually that useful. Plus, it doesn't give slurp juice. So instead, I decided to make it contain mythic and exotic weapons rather than legendary, so that there's a greater incentive to actually go on the treasure hunt. Mobility and scouting, normal. Aquatic Warrior. Swim 50% faster and regenerate up to 100 HP and 50 shield while inside water, except in the storm. 2 HP is gained every second. This is pretty much how it works in game. I don't think it gives a number for how much faster you swim. I think it just says swim faster. So it's 50% faster. I'm pretty sure it's still 50% faster in game if you were to go and test it. But yeah, no changes here. It's just exactly how it is. It's not like crazy good, and I don't personally like it, but if you land like edge of island and your main way of getting in from that spot is by swimming upriver, then yeah, it's good. Bloodhound. Bows, marksman rifles, and sniper rifles mark opponents for 15 seconds after they've been hit. I think it's 15 seconds in game. I might be wrong. It might be 20. If so, I guess this is a technical nerf. But I'm not meaning for this to be a nerf. It's meant to stay the same as it is. Bush Warrior. Regenerate up to 100 HP and 50 shield while inside large foliage except in the storm. 2 HP is gained every second. Bush Warrior was always one of those augments where like you get it and you're like, yeah, I'll choose Bush Warrior, why not? It's pretty convenient to use because all you have to do is find a bush, or like a pile of leaves or something. But like, bushes are not hard to find at all. You just have to be looking for them. And if you pair this with something like, oh I don't know, Harvester, where once you're done with the bush, you can just break the bush and then get some healing items, or a bush bomb. And bush bombs would be very useful to hold while you have Bush Warrior, because if you ever get cracked, you just throw down a bush wherever you are, and now you're healing, which is really nice. Plus it provides cover if you absolutely need it. So overall, Bush Warrior is unchanged, but that's just because it's decent. Icy Slide. Gain the Icy Feet effect while sliding. Wears off when jumping or standing. This augment is completely unchanged. This is just how it works. It's great, honestly. Especially when you pair it with mud, where you move a lot faster while you're muddy, and then you have the ice feet while you're sliding from Icy Slide. It's just great movement. And then you pair it with the heisted running gun SMG, and you are just moving. More parkour. Receive the slap effect for 15 seconds after mantling or hurdling, and energy is reset. So this one is, I don't know if it's buffed or nerfed. It sort of feels like 15 seconds, so I set it to 15 seconds. I'm not entirely sure. It's not meant to be nerfed. It's supposed to be the exact same as it was. So if this is an accidental nerf, then whoopsie, but this is meant to be unchanged. This is just how the augment works. Mud Warrior. Regenerate up to 100 HP and 50 shield while covered in mud, except in the storm. 2 HP is gained every second. This augment is the exact same as it is right now in the game, and I'd make no changes to it because it's not needing a change. It's an okay augment, especially if you're going to be in the jungle biome. Party Time. A balloon will spawn on your back every 30 seconds. This one is again unchanged from how it was. I feel like Party Time was never like a stupidly overpowered augment, but it could be powerful in the right situations. Especially if you used like a shockwave hammer right before, because the last time this augment was in the game was Chapter 4 Season 1 when the shockwave hammer was in. So what people would do is they would get a balloon, and then they would shockwave hammer up right when the second balloon was about to spawn on their back, because it's every 30 seconds, so you can pretty easily time it. The balloon on their back would spawn, and then they would just stay in the air, and by the time they would start to come back down, the third balloon would spawn, They would float up until the third balloon popped, then they would start floating back down, then the third balloon would spawn, so they'd go back up, and they would just stay in the air for like most of the game. And if you got shot out, you still had fall damage immunity from using the shockwave hammer. So it all balanced out. Me personally, I remember I got like 3 or 4 kills or something like that in a row using this. So using party time, a shockwave hammer, and then an Excalibur rifle to just spray down explosive swords at people, and it was great. Primal Companion. Gain thermal vision and regenerate up to 100 HP while riding animals except in the storm. 2 HP is gained every second. I'm pretty sure Primal Companion only heals HP and not shield, as it is in the game. If it does heal shield, then it's a way stronger augment than I think, and I should probably start taking the augment because that's pretty good, especially if you land in a jungle biome. Like, you don't have to pop minis as soon as you land. You can just get on an animal, regenerate HP, and then pop a big pot, and you're at 100. So that's pretty good, but I'm pretty sure it just regenerates 100 HP, and I feel like that's still pretty balanced, because when you're on animals, it's harder for people to hit you. They end up hitting the animal way more instead, which, to be honest, I kind of just target the animal anyway, so they have like regular movement instead of weird animal movement. And from my experience riding animals, I struggle to hit shots while doing it, but I know some people are really good at it. I'm not trying to nerf this augment. Some people like it, some people don't. I personally don't because I don't like thermal vision. Roaming redeploy. Gain the ability to redeploy your glider when you gain immunity to fall damage. So I'll talk about how this works with Aerialist once I get to Aerialist, but roaming redeploy, it just got added. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's just an alright augment, especially when paired with soaring sprints. You just soaring sprints up and then redeploy your glider. Super easy mobility, and by the time you land, your sprint is reset. So I personally wish we just had Aerialist in the game, but roaming redeploy is not too bad. It's just like a more balanced version of it. Sprint lines. Gain the slap effect when on grind rails, vines, ascenders, or zip lines. Last 30 seconds. This one isn't meant to be nerfed. I had to actually edit it a little bit in my script because I realized that I made it way weaker than it is in game right now, and I don't want to nerf it. It's a really good augment, and I actually frequently use it this season just because, you know, you find a random zipline somewhere, you jump on, get off, and now you have sprint for 30 seconds, and it's great, right? It's a great augment, especially for like the jungle, because there's just so many ziplines and the vines everywhere. Yeah, sprint lines, not meant to be nerfed or buffed. It should just stay the same, and it's great the way it is. Soaring sprints. Jumping while sprinting gives fall damage immunity, and the initial jump is 50% higher. Soaring sprints is just going to stay the way it is. In fact, a lot of these mobility and scouting augments are the exact same as they were, and it's simply just because most of them are really good, and there's no real reason to change them. And that kind of goes with soaring sprints. It's just good. It doesn't need a nerf, and it doesn't need a buff. It's just good. Perfect the way it is. Supercharged. Vehicles you're inside have 500 more HP and only consume fuel while boosting. So this one now extends to all vehicles, so boats, quad crashers, bikes, like any vehicle you're on. It does not extend to animals though, but any vehicle you're in has 500 more HP and you only consume fuel while boosting. Thermal mud. Gain thermal vision while covered in mud. This one is a pretty simple augment, and I honestly don't know why this is a game changer in-game. It doesn't really change the game all that much. It's just mud is either really good or really bad depending on whether or not you need thermal vision or not. Fortunately, if you don't want this, you just pick a different augment. Again, I really don't like thermal vision, so I very rarely ever pick this augment. No nerf or buff is required because this is just such a simple augment. Traversal Warrior. Regenerate up to 100 HP and 50 shield while using grind rails, vines, ascenders, or zip lines except in the storm. 10 HP is gained every second. Unlike all the other warrior augments like Bush Warrior or Aquatic Warrior, instead of gaining 2 HP every second, you get 10. And the reason for that is simply because how long are you going to sit on a grind rail or an ascender or a zip line and like sit there and wait for the HP to go up, right? You're not. While you're on one of those things, you gain 10 HP every second, which is really good. But considering you're going to be on those mobility items for not very long, it's usually not worth it right now to get Traversal Warrior. So having it regenerate a lot faster than the other warrior augment. So not only does it have the use of you gain HP a lot quicker than other warrior augments, but then also you combine this with like sprint lines and you basically just like sit on an ascender for a while, or a zip line, or a grind rail, or whatever, and you just go zooming around wherever you are, and you get a butt ton of HP, and you get infinite sprint, which is great, especially if you're on grind rails or vines. So, yeah, mobility and scouting, legendary. Aerialist, gain the ability to redeploy your glider. When combined with roaming redeploy, glide 50% faster. The combined part is when roaming redeploy would be active. So let's say you do a soaring sprints jump, that would be when roaming redeploy would be active. So in that specific scenario, you would glide 50% faster because you have both aerialist and roaming redeploy. However, if you just jump off a building and then deploy your glider, you have normal glider speed because you only activated aerialist. Make sense? Forecast reveals the next 5 storm circles. Forecast, I believe, did 4 when it got nerfed, so now I'm doing 5. If it did more than that, then I guess this is a nerf. But I feel like having 5 storm circles, and then the fact that it's either the 3rd or 4th augment that you get, makes it really strong when you get it, and kind of undoes the nerf that it initially had. You get forecast, and now you see the next storm for the whole game. That's a little strong, right? But if you get it as your last augment, who cares that it was nerfed? You see the next 5 storm circles. That's still very useful information. And so forecast is still strong and deserves the legendary rank, but it's not overly so because once it wears out, well, now it's completely useless. Storm Mark. When the storm stops moving, marks any players within the 30-meter radius for 10 seconds. So Storm Mark is getting 2 nerfs here. The first one is when the storm stops moving, not when the storm starts moving and stops moving. Because that's how it used to be. Because the storm would start moving and Storm Mark would ping, and then the storm would stop moving and Storm Mark would ping. So it's only when the storm stops moving. So if you're in late game zones where the zone doesn't stop moving, it just goes to the next one, Storm Mark doesn't work. And then also I made it a 30-meter radius, and that's 30 meters in every direction. Up, down, left, and right. So if you're 31 meters above the player, you don't get marked. And the mark is only for 10 seconds. So yeah, it's heavily nerfed. Still very useful if you know someone is hiding in a house nearby, but it's not like stupid like it once was. Tricked out. All entered cars gain off-road tires and a cow catcher and regenerate 10 HP every 2 seconds if they haven't been hit for 30 seconds. After the HP is full, pop tires regenerate. Tricked out gets the buff of cars regenerate if they're not taking damage, so that's pretty useful. Now let's take a scenario. You're in zero build, you're camping in a car, and you have tricked out, right? And you're just sitting there. One of your tires is popped, right? But nobody's shooting at your car right now. And you're just sitting in the passenger seat, right? So the car's motor isn't on. So nobody really knows that you're in there. And the car is just regenerating HP. And then once it's done, the tire regenerates. So now you can drive it and it doesn't just damage itself, which is really nice. And finally, Zero Chance. Gain the 0-point dash effect when you break an opponent's shield. Lasts 15 seconds. Zero Chance. One of my favorite augments of all time. You have to break both their regular shields and overshield, but if they just have overshield, you just have to break the overshield. Which, having access to the 0-point dash, in my opinion, is always super helpful. Unless you're trying to do some fancy trick with mantling, then it's really annoying. But every other time, 0-point dash is great to have. And then getting it when you crack someone is huge. Like, imagine you're playing zero build, right? You use your MK Alpha, you crack someone's shield, you throw down a shockwave, sprint jump into soaring sprints, and then because their shield is cracked, you just 0-point dash up into the air to get even more height and distance, and then you just dunk on them with a shotgun. That would be the coolest clip ever. And I honestly wish Zero Chance was back in the game so we could get that clip. Augments are now a part of what makes Fortnite what it is, whether for good or for bad. Sometimes things in games need to be balanced perfectly, like chess, where the victor is determined by pure skill. Some games need luck to thrive. Fortnite strives to strike a balance between both with augments. They change how you play the game, whether in small or big ways. Something like swift shotgun reload isn't going to absolutely turn the tide of an entire game, but stronger augments like shotgun striker will to a degree. I feel like both game changers and convenience type augments allow the game to be fresh every time, especially as players start to feel burnt out. These kinds of changes strive to make the game a lot more fair and a lot more fun without being too complicated. If you guys like these longer type videos, please let me know in the comment section. Anything and everything helps. If you disagree with any of these suggestions, I do accept constructive criticism, but please be civil about it. And with that being said, I'm going to let this game play out, and alright, that's all I gotta say. Bye.